mean, what if I don't want to live the way you live?
Oh, don't be ridiculous, Andrea. Everybody wants this.
Welcome to Nice Finance. If you're reading the title, you already know what this video is about.
So I've been a homeowner for 2.5 years now, but I never told y'all why. So about 3 years ago, my husband and I, we were less than a year into marriage, living in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,000 square foot apartment for $1,500. So because we had been living there for almost 1 year, as expected, we got a renewal letter. Child, why was our rent going up from $1,500 to $2,000? $500 US. We're talking about the same apartment with the same floors, the same counters, the same space, and immediately we knew we were not going to stay there, so we started looking at other places. However, this was 2022, and in 2022, rent hikes were crazy everywhere. So we decided if we're going to be paying $2,000, we might as well own a home. Then we realized how incredibly predatory home ownership was. Y'all, there were neighborhoods with waiting lists where you would put your name down on the list and they would call you and you would have 24 hours to tell them whether you want to move forward or not, and you had to also put down your deposit that day. So we ended up having to look outside of our preferred area and went about 30 miles north, and we came across some new construction that we did like that was reasonable. But remember, y'all, this is not something we planned for. So to get the closing costs, the down payment, all that stuff, we had to temporarily relocate and live with my parents, which is a privilege a lot of people do not have. All of this to say, I'm not someone who's going to advocate for home ownership over renting or vice versa. But I am someone who's going to advocate for affordable housing, rent stabilization, assistance for first-time home buyers, and solutions to the housing shortage. And not to make everything political, but this is on the ballot, and VP Harris has a plan. Millions of Americans can't afford to buy a home or rent a suitable apartment. And because of that, we also can't afford to not vote and not do anything about it.
Buy a house, you need to own a home, you need to build equity. This is generational wealth, but no one actually talks about the work that goes into owning a home. Hi, I'm Owen, I'm a registered nurse and a content creator, and I actually just bought my first home with my husband. These are some things I wish I knew before buying a house. First thing is the hidden cost. I really thought owning a house meant just mortgage and monthly bills, but your down payment is even one of the first of many costs associated with the house. There are a lot of costs that go into closing and finally actually getting the keys to the house, such as homeowners insurance, lawyer fees, fire insurance, property taxes, title insurance. The list just goes on and on and on. Don't even get me started on if you want to renovate or update something in the new place. It's so expensive. Once you add up all of these fees, you probably need like 2 to 3 times your down payment to be able to be in a comfortable state. I wish I knew how much time goes into actually managing things in your home, from the monthly bills to landscaping, mowing the lawn, making sure to take your trash out on trash day, packing the snow when it's snow time. Recently even had a leak, and guess who had to figure it out? We did. In an apartment, I would just call the management and everything will be fixed. But in your own home, you're the management and the tenant, which honestly does not give. You have to build an emergency fund for just the house. Over time, you might need to replace things like the roof, upgrade appliances, or even deal with structural issues. If you know that anything that breaks in your house is never cheap, so you need to save. Building equity in your home is not immediate. It takes time for the property actually appreciates. It's definitely a huge achievement to own a home, but you definitely need to be very ready for the responsibility of home ownership. It is not easy. If you're a homeowner or in process of even buying a house, what surprised you the most about buying or owning a home? Let me know in the comments.
I just received the electricity and gas bill for my new home, and oh my gosh, it's so much money. Like, what? I am so freaking shocked. Hear me out. The bill is $121.06, but keep in mind, I do not live there full time. I'm still commuting to and from work and everything, so I don't live there full time. That being said, to have that already be the bill, I calculated it. If I were to live there full time, my bill would be at least almost $700. Almost $700! That's literally just for electricity and gas. That's not even water, internet, my mortgage. I know why my electricity bill is high. It's because when I am there on those days, I turn on my HVAC system, which I know cools the whole home but runs up the bill because the electricity for that is on throughout the whole day. Is that a lot of money to you guys? Because to me, having to pay almost $700 a month for electricity and gas is insane. Like, I've never had to pay that much in my life, so just knowing that if I were to live there full time, that's the amount, shook.
I hate being a homeowner. There, I said it, and I meant it, and I hate it so much that we're moving out of our house and into an apartment. But not just any apartment, into a loft in the city with 10-foot ceilings, exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows, because I need this move for my mental health. So I decided that this was going to be the year that I focus on myself and I just free myself of all the things that were stressing me, that I didn't like, that just made me unhappy. And then I took a look around me and I realized that one of the main things that were stressing me out was trying to renovate this damn house. And I don't want to do it anymore. I'm not going to do it anymore. I saw a girl on here and her response said that rent is the maximum that I will pay and a mortgage is the bare minimum that I will pay, that I've never heard anything more true, and that's exactly why I'm moving. Every time I turn around, there's another expense. There's something to pay for. Something's broke, something needs to be fixed or replaced. I don't want to deal with that. And I personally make enough money where I could live in a nice place, where I don't have to be in a house in the suburbs renovating a 1970s fixer-upper on a budget. Like and I choose not to. So we're moving. If you want to see our journey from moving from a house in the suburbs on an acre of land to a fun little loft in the city, follow along because it's going to be fun.
I bought this house from the bank 3 years ago, and I hate it. And some people are asking me why. Why do you hate it? Because I can't afford it.
Homeownership will never be a blessing if you do not use wisdom. And no shades to this creator, but I've been a homeowner since I was 25 years old, and it's been a blessing to me. Because I have tens of thousands of dollars in equity, and land is the only thing that they are not building more of. Most millionaires and every billionaire in this country and abroad owns real estate. It's not a bank scam. You just got to do things the right way. Just because the bank tells you that they're going to give you $400,000 or $300,000, like she said, does not mean that you should spend $300,000. So for context, both my mortgages are around $1,600, but I knew that I could afford $2,000, but I didn't want to be at $2,000 because I know insurance, taxes, inflation, home ownership upgrades, all of these things have to be accounted for when you're thinking about a mortgage. But instead, people go into it thinking about this nice, big, pretty house and not thinking about the future. You could be a homeowner, you just have to do things the right way.
Basketball too.
Gen Z is so screwed. This new study put out by Smart Assets shows how much money you need to make in 2024 to live comfortably as a family of 4, 2 adults and 2 kids by state in the United States. And as you can see, bottom line is, it is expensive. They define living comfortably as being able to pay off debt while also saving for the future. They say that if you're an individual and you want to live in a major US city, you need to make $96,500. And if you're a family with 2 kids, you need to make $235,000 in order to live in one of those cities.
Do you guys remember when stressing about money was during the 2008 recession, feeling guilty about bothering your parents about buying the Webkins because you knew everybody was a little tight for cash? How I wish it was that simple.
When I tell people that I made $85,000 when I was 22, and then at 25 is when I made my first 6-figure salary, a lot of people ask, why didn't you buy a house? You should buy a house. The market's going to go this, the market's going to do that. You should buy a house. The reason why I have never bought a house is because it doesn't suit me. A lot of people buy houses because they think it's like an escape plan and that's how you're going to get rich, and especially Australians. Now, when I speak to Australians, a lot of them think buying a house is like the end goal, be all, end all. I have a completely different plan, and on top of that, I just don't want to be house broke. If you've ever heard what house broke is, it's when your mortgage takes up more than 30% of your pay slip. If I was going to buy a house at 85, 100% I was going to pay more than 30% of my weekly paycheck on a mortgage. That would make me house broke. I don't want to do that. When you're buying a house, I need you to think, do I want to buy a house because it's what everyone's told me to do? Or do I want to buy a house because this is something that suits me, especially me as well? I didn't want to live in Australia. Buying a house in Australia wouldn't have made sense because there's no way that I'd be able to manage it from overseas. It just wasn't feasible. It wasn't a right option for me. So before you buy a house, really, really think, what do I want in my life?
Being house poor is a legit contradiction because on the one hand, you own, quote unquote, the asset, but even that might not be true. You have to understand a lot of people owe money on their home. They owe money to the government, they owe money to the bank, they owe money. Like, the home isn't something they truly own because so much of it is ongoing costs and so much of it is debt servicing the debt on the home. So, and it's also something that is very challenging because most people who are house poor are literally living in the so-called asset. So how can you call it an asset, a true asset, if you're living and using it and you're unable to generate really any income from it at all. So it's not truly an income generating asset. You can argue that it's appreciating, but the appreciation is kind of covering all of the costs that I just talked about. So that's why, yes, it is a contradiction, but it is how it is. So a lot of people own a home, they owe so much continual money on it that it cuts into the rest of their lifestyle. So because they have to service this massive responsibility that is their primary home, they don't have money to go on vacations anymore. They don't have money to go do X, Y, and Z anymore. And that's why they feel poor. It's even though they have a roof over their heads, they genuinely have less money to spend because their house is sucking up so much of their money. That's what it means.
Transparency post. I regret buying a house. I regret it a lot. If I could go back to January 2022, I would tell that girl, do not. Just find another apartment to move into, because doing all this shit that I have to do for this house and all the unexpected costs, high dollar unexpected costs that I keep running into, to be handling it by myself, it's ass. So to all you young women who want to go out and buy a home, I encourage you to really, really think about it. Talk to some people and really see the ins and outs. I mean, it always sounds good. Oh yeah, your mortgage is only going to be $1,000 until they reevaluate your property taxes, and that bitch goes up $200. You know, it's trash. 85 degrees, your AC is going to go out. You don't want to know how much that costs. It's trash.
It's crazy to me when primary homeowners boast about their deductions, because they really don't have any. Other than maybe some state and local taxes, other than maybe some of your interest write-offs, not even the full amount, depending on how much it is, because there's certain limits. Like, you got to really look into this stuff. Even so, that's about it. You only get those two write-offs. You can't write off depreciation. You can't write off costs of maintaining the home. You just can't. These are only things that are eligible for investment homes, real estate investors. So real estate investors, if you don't live in the home, you can write off all of those other juicy things, like depreciation, namely. Now, depreciation is exciting, but then when you sell the home, you do have to do the depreciation of recovery, or whatever the technical term is. But my point here is, a lot of primary homeowners wrongfully think that they're getting all of these fancy deductions when they're really not. It's more or less the interest that, by the way, they already paid the bank. Look into amortization schedules, and you will see how slowly you are paying off your debt, with 90 to 95% of your first year payments going towards just interest alone, barely cutting into the principal. So your equity buildup is also not as fast as you think it is.
If you enjoy the content, please consider subscribing, sharing the video, and giving it a thumbs up. Until next time, take care.